what you're seeing at the bottom is the front and back of the same piece. And she described, what was interesting to me about that was she described the measurement, not with precision, but with a range. She said the range was 0.286 or 287, something like that, to 0.301 inches. A 30 caliber round is called 30 caliber because it's, in theory, 0.30 inches. So, but a 30-06 is actually 0.308 inches. The bore diameter is 0.30, but the grooves inside the bore are 0.308. And so if you take a 308 measured round and you slip it through a bore that's 0.30, but the ridges are 0.308, you should.
And how this corporation all started and how it was set up.
Have a jacket fragment that measures closer to 0.308 on the width. And there's some compression rate that goes to the bore, but I'm not sure you lose all of it. But that's obviously people's money.
It's quite
that stood out the most to you that you felt were just didn't help matters?
Well, the biggest inconsistency of the entire 5 days, in my opinion, they had video footage they showed that they alleged was Tyler Robinson coming back to try to retrieve the gun at 12:47.
when you start
Just 12 hours later. Yeah, roughly 12 hours later. And they show a car that looks a lot like the Dodge Challenger, and it's showing up, and this is recovered from doorbell cam footage from across the street. They show a little clip of it. It's very muddy. It's very blurry. You can't see what's going on. You can see it going open. You can see headlights and taillights. But they clipped it. I mean, they just kept showing a little piece of it, little piece of it, little piece of it. And then the prosecution, finishes their examination, and then on cross, the defense is like, hey, the lady who took that, she saw a bald man driving the car with 3 passengers, right? And the guy was like, I don't know. And she's like, well, that's the statement she gave, right? He's like, well, yeah, she did do a statement where she said she thought she saw a bald man driving with 3 passengers. Sorry, we forgot that one. Well, yeah, okay, that would have been good information on direct. That would have been really good information on direct. When you're trying a case, you're not only trying your strengths, you're also looking at your weaknesses. Now, granted, this isn't a trial. You don't have a trier of fact there. The judge kind of says a trier of fact as a magistrate, but you certainly are trying, because of how public this is, trying to capture the public's trust. To me, the prosecution has to have an explanation for that. Like, why did she think that? That might be a good time, if you're going to introduce that footage, that might be a good time to go ahead and bring her in and let her explain why she thinks she saw that. Maybe she hallucinates, maybe she takes Ambien, maybe she, has a history of mental illness, maybe she wasn't wearing her glasses that night. Why? If you have a statement from somebody that says, "Oh, you're saying that Tyler Robinson,
I would say
actually your man,
an average of like 60 to like 120,000 a
that was
month
a
just on
huge problem.
Twitch.
Because it
Year and a
showed,
half.
to me,
And then
it showed the prosecution.
Right as it started to decline, it went 60 to 40 grand a month, then 20 grand a month, then 10 grand a month, and then 2 grand a month.
Defense either wasn't
Like, how many kids see this number? So I was
why they would think that.
spending around.
But
I lived in LA.
That to me is
and obviously my numbers go down. Friends I thought I had.
Sounds strange.
Aren't my real friends.
There's a lot of strange timelines.
Family, like
especially
kid protecting, past relationships.
The fact that so you and I talked about this, but I'm trying to think like what you said was off record with this. I don't want to say anything wrong, but don't risk it. All right, let's flip it out. All right, I have a thought. You and I will talk about that after. Maybe I'll bring that up tomorrow. So let me punt on that for a second. But like, you have the video of him.
Because I figure that's really the only
HD
way
navigation hallways around the building. This wasn't a school he went to or anything, so it's like that's interesting. He was there, so we know we could place him like at the place. And then the video of him that we referenced earlier, that Jack Kozovic claimed to see things that clearly he didn't see. Up on the rooftop is from far away. And this is someone who at the time when you review that video, because now I think it's the same one, but it's better rendered, the one that Candace put out. You can see it closer, and you can see a figure who does not appear to have a limp, a figure who is moving very quickly as a result, does not appear to be physically hiding a gun in his pants as we had seen in some of the other videos as well. and who then gets down into a position, but we can't see him take out a gun or pull a trigger or anything like that. He does a military crawl on the way there, which would suggest he's extremely highly trained, like he was in the military, which this kid was not. And then is able to get away quickly and run again without a limp off the building, presumably with the gun. And to me, this was like a bit of a shocking video to see, because to me, it's like, first of all, question, and I'd like to pose this to you. Do you think that's Tyler Robinson?
No.
Okay, let's start there. So you don't think that's Tyler Robinson
On the roof?
but you do, but the video of him walking through the hallways, that's him. So where do you
I don't
think,
think that's him in the hallways either.
you don't think that's him in the hallways either?
I don't think you can tell. And in fact, Lance Twiggs, when he was doing his 1102 statement,
If you're a small content creator, use this stuff, you know, piece of
Is that strange to do it that way?
Yes.
Preliminary hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, I think it's highly unusual that you would introduce a Zoom call as evidence in a preliminary hearing. Yeah, it's very unusual to me. But they show those 6 pictures that they have of the alleged Tyler Robinson on campus. And they said, can you identify the person there? He's like, well, not 100%, not based on those pictures. And he's looking at all 6 of them. All 6 pictures. And his face is visible and everything else. And he said, well, yeah, I mean, based on the clothes, he's wearing jeans, he's got those shoes, he likes to wear hats, he's wearing a hat here. I've never seen him in that hat. He's wearing a hat, yeah, and the sunglasses. Yeah, and then, so you can, in my opinion, it's almost as if somebody's off screen going, dude, that's him. You have to say it's him.
Touchy, goodbye.
But, yeah, exactly. But he had already said that he couldn't identify him, and he was already looking at those pictures. So I changed that. It didn't make a lot of confidence that that's Tyler Robinson. It didn't make a lot of confidence that Lance Twiggs thought it was Tyler Robinson.
Do you think Tyler Robinson was on campus that day?
I think he was in Orem. I don't know whether he was on campus. I've not seen evidence that's convincing that he was on campus.
Do you have and this may be like way outside the scope, I'm just asking, but do you know a reason why he would have been in Orem?
No. I mean, I operated under the assumption that he was there to engage in some sort of criminal conspiracy, whether that was to kill Charlie Kirk or cause some sort of mischief at an event or what. But I do think he was probably there as that he believed was going to pull off some sort of criminal. That would put him in one. Whether or not his role was to ever be on campus.
So, playing out of pure respect, total hypothetical, but in that type of scenario, could it be something where he and a group of people who may disagree with Charlie Kirk's beliefs were colluding to disrupt an event like that, and perhaps because they're talking about that on digital spaces, that could be picked up by other people who view that as a very advantageous cover to be able
You
to
can
do
say
something
how sad makes me.
a lot worse than that? Do you think something like that is a plausible scenario?
Plausible, sure. You're given a lot of infiltrated with
to the jail, FDC might
yeah,
yes,
and
Chris,
that
they-
they're not manipulated.
for 2 days in a row. It's the second day in a row I've been denied. We came here today at 9 o'clock in the morning because we were denied last night. The guy in there didn't like my jacket. So we had to go back and forth. I said, you know what, I'll just come back to it. You want to deny me,
Do you
right to see
think,
my client, I'll go
based
back,
on the
write it in the
video,
book,
again,
put a motion, we show up today, 9 o'clock in
but
the
based
morning,
on that
jail's closed.
video,
Who the hell closes the jail?
that the
The jail's
person
closed,
there,
come back
if
at
it
2
wasn't
o'clock.
Tyler
We're here
Robinson,
2 o'clock sharp,
is
get in
someone
line,
who got there
get
with
the
a gun
locker,
that we can't
my
see
stuff
very
in there,
well, could be a different
go to the
gun,
front,
or
they're about to
some
check
sort
me
of
in, McBride, come in.
to do something
Sorry,
like
sir, you
this,
can't
the
come
person
in.
who
We're
actually
closing the
pulled
jail
off
again. So we come here every day to do what? To obtain proof of life. To make sure that Andrew and Tristan are still alive and kicking. Because for all you morons out there that like to link to Epstein, as I said, you call them their death. So we make sure that they're alive, that they're kicking, and that they're well. We also will legal strategy, we go for a bunch of papers, we go over legal stuff that we need to do. What? The jail's closed today. Come here 9 o'clock in the morning, come back at 2, come back at 2, they say come back at 5, come back at 5, we said no, come back next week.
Nothing's happened yet.
Can't do it. These guys are Being merely held for detention, have the right to meet with us, and we're being systematically denied that right. Be sure to let the judge know that this case is incompetent.
So you gotta get up there, you gotta lay down the position, you gotta run off, don't worry, I'll give you way back there, I can see what you're doing, I can see your face, just jump up. I think the person on the roof was likely one of those two roles and not actually the one who did anything on that day.
I started to make that timeline point a couple of minutes ago, but didn't know about that. I was like, we'll talk about it after, so I can make sure I know what I say. But wasn't there also, like, with these Discord messages that did look somewhat highly suspect from the get-go, but wasn't there something where some of them were allegedly sent after he allegedly had been arrested, according to what the story is?
So there's a lot of debate on that. I was looking at the filings, and I noticed in the defense's filing that they made along the way, one of their filings, they referenced a timestamp when Tyler invoked his Fifth Amendment right to summons, but they didn't put a date on it. It just said 6:25 p.m. And so I thought, I don't know, 6:25 p.m. Where was that? So I was looking for context. It was in that statement, and he made a comment about the lawyer's office that I want is closed for the night. He said, I'm looking for a lawyer here. His name is XYZ, whatever his name is. And it looks to me like he's very clearly invoking his right to remain silent for the first time. If you assume that 6:25 is accurate, I don't know why the defense would put the wrong time there, so I assume it's accurate. You look and you say, well, there's really only two options where that conversation could have taken place. It could have taken place on September 11th, which is a Thursday, which is the day he turned himself in, or it could have taken place on September 12th, which is a Friday, which is the day after he turned himself in. And even on the official narrative timeline, that 6:25 p.m. would be like 21 hours after he turned himself in. So knowing those two facts, it has to be one of those two times, 6:25 on Thursday or 6:25 on Friday. Go back and look at the context again. I'm looking for a lawyer here, named so-and-so. Well, here would have been Washington County. That's where he turned himself in because the lawyer he named was practicing in Washington County. He wasn't practicing in Utah County. He wasn't from Utah County. That's 4 hours away. Why would he say, I'm looking for a lawyer here? Then he said, my parents are trying to get in touch with him. His office, not the weekend. If it's 6:30 on Friday, do you say the lawyer opens up on Saturday morning? The fact that he's saying with him means that he had just spoken with his parents and knew they were trying to get in touch with him. The office was closed for the night. That's more consistent with a Thursday night where he had spoken to his parents minutes before than it is Friday night where he hadn't spoken to his parents in 21 hours and has no idea what his parents have been doing for. Maybe they did get in touch with a lawyer. Maybe they've already gotten him. Maybe we have no idea what's going on. So I looked at all those contexts and I raised the possibility that that conversation actually took place on Thursday, not Friday. Well, if it took place on Thursday at 6:25, it took place an hour and a half before the Discord message went out at 7:57. Mm-hmm. And so that led me to believe it's possible those Discord messages were fake. They weren't from him at all. Taking your right to remain silent. You're going to invoke the right to remain silent. You're going to confess to anybody with a link to a Discord chat forever. Be there forever.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyone who ever gets that URL can log in and see your confession, but you don't want to confess, but you want to invoke your right to remain silent, and then go back to his text messages to Lance Twiggs. I intended to take this. Well, you're taking it to your grave. You're talking to your alleged boyfriend, and confess to a Discord chat that you've not even met all these people. It's totally inconsistent. So I looked at all that, and I concluded that it very likely was a Thursday afternoon invocation of his Fifth Amendment rights, not a Friday afternoon invocation. And if that's the case, do we have any other context clues? Well, we didn't at the time. But a few weeks later, a couple months later maybe, the this prosecution files an exhibit. And on the exhibit list, they list out by bait stamp number the exhibits they take. One of those is Tyler Robinson in the Washington County office on September 11th. That's the same bait stamp number that was cited in that original 6:25 p.m. timestamp. So I look at that and say, no brainer. Obviously, that's p.m. This is a huge problem. Third context clue. They wanted to show that his clothing when he turned himself in was consistent with wearing wearing on that day. So they wanted to show him at the Washington County Sheriff's Office in the maroon t-shirt. When they do, they zoom it in so you don't get the timestamp on that security footage. That was a big indication to me that very well could have been that. The fourth context clue is one of these press outfits in Utah. I don't want to cite them, so I don't want to cite the wrong one, but one of the press outfits in Utah wanted to get a copy of the footage of him turning himself in. They wouldn't release it to him.
Do you think they'll release that at trial?
I honestly don't know, because turning yourself in is not. So they don't have to. You could convict them without turning that in. It's possible. And then they lied to the press and said that they had deleted it because it extended beyond the retention.
The prosecution said that?
The Washington County Sheriff's Office said that. And then the Washington County Sheriff miraculously resigns in March of this year under a cloud of suspected bad behavior. Mm-hmm. And so I put all that together, 5 clues, some of which are really solid in my opinion, like the base. Some of those Discord messages may have come after he turned himself in, which suspicion on every statement that he made about he did it.
Have you spoken, and if you can't talk about this, no problem, but have you spoken with any sources in or around or in some way connected to the thinking of his family and where they stand on whether or not, at this point, whether or not they believe he actually did it?
Yes, they don't believe he did it.
So is it fair to assume you're referring to like his mother and father don't believe that?
There's a guy on X. I know him. I believe him. I have personally spoken to the grandmother.
Okay.
And that's
Grandfather's gun, right? That was the alleged thing.
Yes.
Okay.
He has spoken to the grandmother, and I've seen text messages between the family. They don't believe he did it. They deny that he confessed to them. They deny that he turned himself in because he was guilty. They don't think he did it. Now, did they? No, they never thought he did it.
They never thought it.
And what's miraculous is you're hearing, we've been told for 10 months by TPUSA people, by their hangers-on, their paid contributors. We've been told 10 months that he confessed to his parents, and that's a key component of this. That's why we know he did it. He confessed to his parents, he turned himself in. He confessed to his parents, he turned himself in. We heard this for 10 solid months. They're not even on the witness list. If your mom gets on the stand and says, it's over, we don't need a trial. I mean, at that point, I'm like, well, maybe I'm wrong this whole time.
Could part of it, I gotta ask it this way as the devil's advocate, could part of it be like, there's no way my baby did that? And like it's just setting in after enough time to think about it, being like, you know what,
Parents told law enforcement that he did it. That would be documented. If you put them on the stand and they deny that he said it, you impeach him with the documentation. He didn't tell them. I'm telling you, that is so evidence that they've been lying to us this whole year. Otherwise, we would have heard from them.
What do you make of and it'll be interesting to talk about this with you and Joseph to go back, familiar with the actual process of what it could or should have been. Think of the handling of Charlie's body from what we know, from when he was declared dead at the hospital to when there's video taken that we can determine around the time it was taken of Erica allegedly over his casket, where he has an embalmed body being prepared to be flown back to Arizona, which was less than 24 hours later, or around 24 hours later.
It's too fast, way too fast. We also have a file from the defense where they talk about the autopsy photos, and the autopsy photos that they were all dated September 10th. He died.
Right.
And he allegedly didn't even get to the medical examiner's office until close to 9 o'clock that night. The autopsy was done by midnight. I mean, I'm looking forward to the conversation with Joseph, because I'm curious if that sounds unusually fast. I would think they would be autopsying a more body. at that point? When do they cool them down? The standard, I think, and he'll know more than I do, but from what I can tell from the people I've talked to, from the research I've done, it looks like most of the time an autopsy is done with a body that's been cooled down to below 40 degrees. And when do they cool them down? That's a 6 to 8 hour process. And why such a hurry? Why do it in the middle of the night? Why not, if you're going to do an autopsy, it's only going to take a couple of hours. Everyone's fresh, had a night's sleep, got them a good breakfast, drank a cup of coffee, cool down. Let's see what's going on in here. Nothing changed. 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. Why this massive hurry? So I'm very much looking forward to that conversation. I have no interest in trying to change his mind on anything, but I have a lot of questions that I think he, as an expert, would be able to.
It's going to be amazing because like the combination of you looking at it from an standpoint and looking at it strictly from a forensic standpoint will be great. Because the other thing that when I had him in here, I didn't do a good enough job of, making it clear. With him, we're just looking at like the forensics of it. Yeah. All the other stuff around it and the thing leading up to it, that's not his lane. But, we'll talk about it tomorrow because you're going to be here as well. And it'll be interesting to see if those worlds kind of collide. But I remember, and I called him like a few days later when I was thinking about it because I put together the timeline in my head when she put out that post of like when that must have been based on when that flight was at 5 p.m. or whatever to go to Arizona the next day. I was like, that just seems like, this is a very high profile killing. I would think you're doing a little extra. I know every body is supposed to be treated. Maybe you do a little more crossing the T's and dotting the I's with this one, with a public execution like that. That's just me, but I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what he thinks there. But also, I referenced it a little bit ago and forgot to ask you about it. Obviously, when a scene like this happens, it's chaos. People react in weird ways, in certain ways. That includes people in the audience. But again, public event, we have different videos of the immediate aftermath. You see weird things like someone taking down the camera, taking out some cards, and then, that whole thing and whatever. Was there anything there besides the security team that we kind of talked about that stood out where you're like, that doesn't make sense at all? I don't know why someone would do that in that scenario.
Yeah, I mentioned Dan Flood stepping forward and touching his arm. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen from an alleged security person. And if you take that video footage and you line it up with what's going on the roof, which has been done, it's even weirder because you see lots of different things taking place. No longer is it just Dan Flood stepping forward. Now you have Brian Harpole taking a step back.
Right.
He had been standing roughly in the same position the whole time. He's now. There's a woman who comes from behind the screen right as the guy starts to get into place, and she hands him some mints, he said. And he takes the mints. He doesn't eat it mints. He just sticks them in his pocket. Why is she passing out mints? So it seems like, was she sitting back there waiting for, I don't know, and I'm not accusing anyone, but was she sitting back there waiting for a guy to, start running into position? Why did the sound bad all of a sudden when Hunter Kozak got up to start asking questions? The sound seemed fine while the first guy was asking questions. Now the guy that wants to get up and ask about transgender violence starts asking questions, and we get all this feedback in the system. Did Philip Goldsberry Jr. turn his head before the shooting? Or before the bang? Once Brian Harpole steps behind Frank Turek, Frank Turek then turns towards Charlie Kirk and grabs his hat. Well, when he grabs his hat, Dan Flood looks at him and then looks to the left for some reason, and we don't know who he's looking at. And then he steps forward, and then you hear the crack. All that may have been in the. But when you look at it and you put it in that video footage of the guy on the roof, and you're watching it all take place, it almost looks like a choreographed dance. Now again, it may turn out Tyler Robinson did it with a 30-06 from the Losi Center roof, and that was just the most unfortunate series of events that's ever happened. But it looks like a series of signals. Even the guy asking the question turns and does something that starts the cast. And, it might only be, it might be, maybe lots of people asking questions. Look at somebody and play with their glasses. Maybe lots of people grab their hat. Maybe lots of people get mints and reposition themselves. Maybe lots of people step forward and do this right before during a speaker. But when you watch it in context, knowing that there was a loud bang that killed Charlie, now it starts to look like this multi-step checkoff. Like, yes, I'm clear. Yes, I'm clear. Yes, I'm clear. And so I don't know. That's what's weird in that moment. That is weird. The cameraman behind Charlie, after he goes down, turning and not running for his life, but turning to film where they're going to pull Charlie out. That's weird.
Strange.
That was strange. The fact again that they just yanked Charlie off the ground. He's got a neck wound. There's no head and neck attention whatsoever, and they just drag him off, dangling.
There was the kid on the phone too. Was that Mike?
Yeah, he denies being on the phone. He says he was plugging his ears, but there's also footage of him way off in the back, and he's still doing this. You know, is he still plugging his ears, or does he have a phone in one hand and he's plugging the other ear so he can hear better? You know, Frank Turek saying he was on FaceTime with his son. His son's in his 30s. Why is he on FaceTime watching Charlie Kirk take questions on transgender violence? What a weird thing to watch in the middle of the day. And the video footage behind him doesn't look on FaceTime. It looks like his screen's black. So what is he watching? And unless you say maybe you can't see it from video, he is on FaceTime earlier and you get FaceTime screen. So why can't we see the FaceTime screen now that you claim you're on FaceTime? Just way too many weird way. And conclusion I draw is it's weird for a reason.
Yeah. Have you speak to anybody, whether it's in the family, around the family, and people that would have had access to his body or whatever over the next 24 hours? Have you had a chance to speak to any of them about observations they had?
Charlie's body?
Of his body, of the family came in, what reactions there?
I don't talk about that.
Okay, so maybe, but you don't want to talk. And then the whole paving over the entire thing a couple days later. You know, again, not a cop. Optics.
That's where we get the term cover up from.
Right.
You cover up.
You literally covered it up.
You covered up the crime scene.
Any explanation for that is even decent?
I thought there. Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch did a public records request, text messages about the crime scene that took place the next morning.
Okay.
And the next morning they were already talking about digging it up. Like inside of 24 hours, it seemed like. I may be wrong on the exact timing, but it was the next day. They're already talking about digging it up. They didn't just of soil and got rid of it. And they did that before having a paving contractor so who could come in and put down the pavers. But is there a reason to do that? I don't know, man. I've never run a university where someone's been shot and killed on campus. It's, you know, he bled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible they thought it's a bylaw.
Oh, come on. You could block that off.
You could for a long time. Rains and you have sprinklers and you have hoses and you don't pave over every crime scene.
Yeah.
So lots of crime scenes take place in America every day.
Maybe they were worried he had HIV. Maybe.
Yeah, it could be. That could be.
We're gonna pick it up. You know something about it.
Yeah, not a typical route of contraction, but no. I mean, you're asking me for any reason. Maybe any reason could be they didn't want people out there walking around on Charlie's blood for where he died, and so he put down pavers out of respect, out of whatever. But I don't see it.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. It looks like you're covering up a crime scene.
Yeah, Joseph covered the Koberger case a lot out in in Idaho, and he was even saying back then how pissed off he was they raised that house like a couple months later.
Yeah.
And they did it because it was in the middle of like a bunch of college housing where a bunch of kids were still going to school, and it was obviously a very traumatic event. And like it was a couple months later that he was pissed about that. And like a couple days later, they're doing this. Just block it off. It's a public assassination. Like and that I've never been able to get around. Like what the fuck was that?
I can't either. They did the same thing at Parkland High School. They did the same thing at Sandy Hook. It's interesting that the school, Littleton, Colorado, that kicked off the school shooting craze back in, was it 99? Harris and Cleveland. Columbine. I can't think of the name of the school. It's interesting that school's still there.
Yeah.
They didn't knock it down.
Yeah, wasn't it Parkland, the one where they kept stuff so preserved that maybe I'm thinking of the wrong one? They kept it so preserved though that the jury was able to visit it and it was as if nothing had happened there.
Maybe, I don't know.
There was one of them where they did that correctly, and it's like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
Here.
I think it's interesting. I mean, they've other famous cases. They've redone the crime scenes. They did it at the Monday address where allegedly O.J. Simpson killed Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown. They've redesigned that. They've redone that. That was a decade later,
Right.
Decade and a half later.
Right.
Certainly after the trial.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, at the scene, yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that took place at the scene. I'm still weirded out by the fact that Mikey McCoy and Danny Phillip were both wearing backpacks on either side of Charlie Kirk, when their car was like 10 feet away. Put your backpack in the car. It's blocked off. You got it blocked off with police tape and gates. Why are you walking around in 91-degree heat in long sleeves of a backpack?
But what would the suspiciousness of them having a backpack be?
I don't know. I'm just saying it's weird. Like, put your backpack down. No one else was wearing backpacks on the team. They're the only two, and they were positioned basically equidistant with Charlie, making almost like a little triangle with Charlie. I don't know why that is.
How long from him walking up from behind when he got out of the car to walk up there and did the hats and then sat down? How long was it approximately from then until he got shot?
I heard 17 minutes and 28 seconds. I could be wrong. Maybe it was a minute or two longer. I don't know why that number's coming in my head. It was quick.
Yeah. I'm a backpack guy. Like I take it places. I could see me like accidentally like leaving it on and just chilling there.
But you don't accidentally leave it. You showed up in a car. You grabbed it out of the car and put it on your back.
Right. Because I got to a new place and I'm not as aware of my surroundings. I take